Hey guys, Shutter here. Now, in this video, I'm actually going to be looking at Normandy, and basically, I'm going to be discussing what side actually suffers the most. Now, I know everyone goes, oh, Allies suffer, oh, Axis suffer. Now, I've had about 800 games on Normandy, on both sides. This is combined both sides. I've got about 450 for the Allies and about 350 for the Axis. So I'm pretty sure I'm probably, a good eye. I've got a good eye for both sides. But what I'm going to say is I'm going to look through all the campaign levels and basically say which side, where each side benefits. And yeah, I'll start with the Allies. Now, we'll actually we'll do it like this. We'll go level 10, level 20, level 30, 30 plus. Okay, for the Allies, their benefits early on are they get a really good fighter, the P-38. They get the M1 Garand. They get the Piat, and that's it really. So they've got basically, some good weapons. They also have the number 4, which is a pretty good weapon as well. So they've got their early advantages are they've got probably the best bolt action in the game. They've got a good fighter part. They've got a very good noob-friendly fighter to use. They've got a very good weapon, a 9 out of 10 weapon here. Probably the best AT weapon in the campaign for them very early on. And even the M8 Scott, we'll include the M8 Scott here as well for number 10, level 10. But they do get, they get the M8 Scott, which is pretty good. However, their cons are, their vehicles are very weak. Especially stuff like the Stuart and the Scott. They don't get a good SMG at all. They get the carbine, they get the carbine early, so that's not good. And that's about it, really, for the Allies at this early level. So their pros are, which I'll display on the screen, like I said, the good advantages I'll display them on the screen, and then the cons I'll display as well. So yeah, I'll do that the same with the Axis as well. For the Axis at the same level, well, let's look at their pros. They get the BF-110, which is, in my opinion, another good starter aircraft. The BF-110 is pretty good for dogfighting. It's actually not bad for dogfighting. The only problem is its turn speed. They also get the Gavir 43 and the MP40. I would say the Stern Pistol as well. Even though the Stern Pistol is pretty good, it's a skill-based weapon. So I'm going to have to exclude the Stern Pistol, unfortunately. As much love as I have for it, it's a skill-based weapon. And newer players aren't going to really have the skill to use the Stern Pistol. The same goes, actually, unfortunately, the same goes with the Puma, which I would say is a pretty good armoured car. It's a pretty good starting vehicle. It's a really good vehicle, but it is not this big tank which people, new players look at. Like, new players look at the Stuart and think that it will take on a Panzer III. But with the Puma, you're not going to fight really anything in this thing. Unless you play it smart. Like, this thing is you have to play it smart and you have to be intelligent with this vehicle. So that's really the Axis pros. They get, some good weapons early. They get a good plane early, but they do lack, really good armor because the Panzer III is pretty bad. And they get a good SMG at least pretty early. Well, they get 2 good SMGs pretty early. Actually, the 35 is actually not bad. But the problem is quite a few of their weapons are skill based, especially stuff like the Puma and the Stern Pistol, which is where some of the Axis suffer comes from, because the Stern Pistol is a very skill based weapon. So the Puma is is a very skill-based armoured vehicle. So, if you've got the skill for these, you will make good use of these. But if you don't, well, you're stuffed. For level 10, from level 10 onwards, this is where it gets interesting. Now, the the Allies get the Bren immediately. Like, this is a very good LMG. This is, I think I put this as the second worst LMG in the game. But that being said, this is still a 9 out of 10 LMG, and it's still one of the best LMGs in the game. So even though they get even though they get the second worst LMG and their worst LMG pretty early on, it's still, I would say, worth it. They also get the Sherman at level 15. That's a pretty good thing. The A-20 is a pretty decent aircraft, and they get the A1BAR, which is a good upgrade and is, in my opinion, their first actual close range weapon in the campaign. So yeah, you're going to be using the BAR as your close range weapon, and you're going to be using machine gunners as your close range squad for the start of the campaign. Their cons are, well, again, no close range options until level 19, because their best thing is, other than the BAR, is the grease gun, and those are pretty bad. I don't really know about the P51. I don't see that often. 2-inch mortar, obviously, but that's the Axis. They don't get a semi-automatic sniper rifle until much later, and they're stuck with the A4, which is basically a reskin. They get arguably their worst weapon at this point, which is this shotgun. The M1 carbine, the grenade launcher, it's alright. And yeah, that's about it, really. For the Axis, it's a little bit different, because they get some pretty good stuff here. Now, for the pros, well, they get the Sniper Gavir 43, which is actually pretty good. Okay, the Sniper Gavir 43 is actually not bad. It's a Sniper Gavir. It's not as good as the regular Gavir, in my opinion, but it's still really good. They get the Panzer IV-J immediately afterwards, and then the Beretta M1918. Like, this is just... These 3 levels are golden for the Axis. You get a good sniper, you get a good tank, and you get a okay SMG. A situational SMG, but a pretty decent one. You also get the 188, which is, I mean, that one's okay. It really, again, it's the same as the A2, the A20. And you also get the MG34, which is a pretty good LMG. For the cons, though, there's a few, there's a lot. Well, they get let's start the elephant in the room. This awful, awful, awful weapon. One of the worst weapons in the game. They also get the BF-109, which, they're not that good at dogfighting, really, so, yeah. And they get the shooting cup here, which, I mean, it's alright. It's the same with the carbines, with the grenade launcher. It's alright, but they're not the best. For level 20, this is where things get really interesting. For the Allies, they get a few good options here. Starting off with, at level 20, this big thing. Everyone knows what the Jumbo is. We're going to bore it. I'm not going to bore you to death. We all know how powerful this thing is. Next, they get the Sten, which... I mean, it's the Sten. The Sten is their first SMG. This is their first SMG. I'm not going to say anymore. This is their first SMG. You can say what you want in the comments. The Sten is a good SMG, and it's better than that fucking grease gun. For the Engineer 2 weapon with the M2 carbine, pretty good. Obviously, the carbine's really good. They get the A2, which is one of their best weapons. The Lancaster, which is a really good weapon. They get this ugly turd. Like, there's a reason why I've named my pilot the way I've named it, because of what he's flying. M2 Flamethrower is a fantastic weapon, and they get the M1A1 Thompson. So, overall, really good. In fact, these are really just... The only exception is the P38J and the Sniper Garand, which are the only cons for the Allies for this. So this is actually a very good late game Allies. For the Axis, they've actually got some pretty good options as well here. Just look at this. Level 20 to level 23 is Axis paradise. You get the Panzer IV you get the Panzer IV H, which is a very good tank. FG-42-2, MP-35, FG-42. If you saw my last video, you know how overpowered this is. I would say it's the most overpowered weapon in Normandy. So, yeah. MG-42 is a really good weapon. They also get the Focke-Wulf 190, which is a pretty good. It's another skill-based aircraft, so maybe this one on the maybe. Flammenwerfer, Flammenwerfer 41. I think that's how you say it. 41. Yeah, sounds right. But the Flamethrower 41, very good. For the cons though, I'm gonna have to say it's the LMG, the SMG, the ZK, and the Beretta. Now the problem with them is they're good SMGs. Don't get me wrong, they're still good SMGs, but it's just you just get so many of them at this level. It's oversaturated. Now you do get this early on with of course the starting level MP-34. Then you get the FNAV, and then you get the MP-40. But the difference between those is that they're all 1 silver orders, whereas these are all 3 silver order weapons. And that's about it, really. Oh yeah, BF1, the BF-109, still same reason for the other 109. For the Allies, for the very late game, they get some good stuff every now and again, I guess. I mean, Thompson, obviously, you can't go wrong with this. The M19-19A6 is pretty good, and this thing is actually not bad. I've gone up against this thing quite a bit, and, like, obviously I'll wait until, like, I'm not going to make my full judgment on this vehicle yet, until I've actually, used it, but I think this is actually not too bad. This isn't a bad vehicle from what I've experienced on the wrong end of. But every good thing has a bad silver lining, and this is definitely the M10. The M10, honestly, I'm gonna say it. It's I'm not gonna ruin it, but this thing is definitely disappointing, especially because you got the Firefly for the Premium Squad, and just literally 5 levels later, you get the A1 with the 76, which is almost the exact same gun, by the way. Oh yeah, you also get this piece of junk as well. Like, apparently this thing's really overpowered. Like, you can kill people from across the map. You can have, all you gotta do is lay prone in your spawn. Yeah, I've had some bad memories on the wrong end of this piece of crap. For the Axis, they actually get, honestly, tell a lie, I've just realised, it was literally almost all good for level 30. They get the Faust, which is great, the Panther, which is great, the MP-43, which is great, the ME-410, which is also great, 34, which is just a great LMG, and they get the Tiger. It's literally great level after great level after great level. The only shit in this ointment is this. The GGP grenades. Why does this exist? Why does this why? Like, it's so bad. It's actually just awful using these things. Like, they're so bad. They're bad as anti-tank weapons, and you're sacrificing an FG for them. Why would you do this? So, to answer the question, the Axis are really dominant in close range. The Axis are very dominant between level 1 and level 22. Or actually, more like level 19, because that's when the Allies get the VAR. The Allies only start getting really dominant at close range at level 22, level 23, when they get their really good close range kit, like the Sten, the Lancaster, the M2 Carbine, the Thompsons. But before that, they were actually very dominant at mid and long range, with the Bren, the Garand. Whereas the Axis, post this, as soon as they get the MP-43 and the FG and stuff like that, they become more focused around mid-range combat, and they become much better at mid-range combat. In terms of vehicles, the Allies get the Axis get the early game advantage, but the mid game advantage kind of doesn't really skew in any direction because the by mid game I mean level 15 advantage. There's no level 15 advantage because the A2 and the Panzer IV-J are probably about as good as each other. I prefer the 4J to the A2, but the A2 is still really good. The Jumbo is, of course, a game changer, but a good Panzer IV player can beat Jumbos. Like, honestly, Jumbos aren't that bad. It's only really until much later in the tech tree at level 31 that the Axis actually begin to dominate and tank to the Panther A and later Tiger G, the Tiger E. Not G. G was Ferdinand, wasn't it? Whatever. But in terms of air power, there really isn't much difference. Like the BF-110 and the P-38 are different aircraft entirely. There's really not much in the aircraft, or it literally just ebbs and flows. The only exception to this rule is this thing. This is the only breakage of that rule because really the P-47 is literally just I mean, what did the Axis get? What do they get at this point? Oh yeah, they get the Focke-Wulf. The Focke-Wulf's fine. It's just that the P-47 is overpowered, which is, I mean, literally, what do I need to say? I've literally made so many videos on this thing. It's insane. Anyways, I'm going to end the video here. I hope you guys have enjoyed. That's just been... So, basically, the Allies are worse at close range in the early game, but they're better at mid-range. Around the later game, they become more close range, whereas the Axis become more mid-range focused with the more stuff that they unlock. In terms of vehicles, again, it kind of ebbs and flows depending on the level, and really depending on the level, it really the Axis get better at the late game, but they really do struggle around the mid game, especially with the Jumbo. This is more of an average player, not a really good player. And yeah, there's not really much else to say. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Leave your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one.